Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Nosferatu from 1922, starring Max Schreck and directed by F.W. Murnau. Now, before I get into this, welcome back to Universal Monsters after I did The Mummy during COVID times, or should I say, the madness. Anyways, let's move on. And I'm continuing forward to Dracula, leading up to and Nosferatu per se, leading up to the new Nosferatu movie coming out this Christmas. And we'll see if I can get through all of them, but let's get into this movie. As some of this is, well, yeah, we'll talk about it. We start with credits as well as the score, which sounds masterful, but I wouldn't say it's a great score. And we start Act 1 in a book, and we start the movie off in the year 1838 as we get the characters. And do I know any of them? No. It's a silent movie from 1922. But the cinematography looks actually kind of decent for this time, as it looks a hell of a lot like a old school 16 millimeter film. And do I know what's going on in this movie? No, but I'm going to give it a chance as a silent film, even though it's not my favorite genre in general. While we meet Count Graf Orlok, played by Max Schreck, whom based on a movie I have yet to review, Shadow the Vampire, that'll come right after the remake of Nosferatu, where we learn Max Schreck made some people on the set uncomfortable while he was staying in the character, as he was creepy in this movie. And I have to say, I don't really care for the characters, because I just want the vampire, that's what they're calling it in this movie, to kill them despite I'm only 10 minutes into the movie. We get people in a bakery, and we get told about a werewolf being out at nighttime, and as we get some shots of horses and a coyote, and I swear I thought that was a hyena. Maybe it's a coyote, I couldn't tell you. But no matter what the animal is, we get a character briefly reading a book, a vampire's weakness of some kind, and it brings up Nosferatu, as a woman vomits, and we move on to outside. It was horses as they go up a hill, and the horses stop to drop someone off in the middle of the mountain, as one character goes to the castle, who happens to be Count Orlok. And looking at Count Orlok is frightening to look at back in the day, but after Shadow the Vampire came out, it doesn't hold up, as I wasn't really scared at all throughout the movie. So I'm kind of glad we got a reboot coming out at the end of this year. Count Orlok is outside, and I'm thinking a vampire, how the hell can he stay out in the daylight? As that was the end of Act 1, and Act 2 begins with Count Orlok looking at a paper rather creepily at a human, as the human cuts his thumb accidentally, and Count Orlok is trying to drink the blood like any vampire would do, and asks the character to stay a while longer, but the character seemed frightened, and trust me, other than Count Orlok, there's no way I can be able to get the other character's name offhand, as that's kind of annoying to me. But I appreciate the movie as it was, but it was unfortunately hard to follow. Count Orlok goes home with a stranger and says his wife has a lovely neck, like he might bite it later in the movie. And we get more information from the book about Nosferatu while the stranger is hiding, and Count Orlok eventually comes in and looks very creepy while the wife wakes up and goes to the window and climbs and walks on the ledge, and she almost falls to death, and someone gets a doctor in the room, and she dreams of Count Orlok coming after her, as Count Orlok walks out of the door, and it closes the door on its own, and we move on to more boring things happening as Count Orlok rides to the character's wife's house while covering himself in a box. And that makes me think he's a vampire, as they keep calling him in the movie. And we get to the end of Act 2, as that was mostly boring to me. I was bored out of my freaking mind. We get through text that Nosferatu is coming, as danger is on the way to the normal characters, and they get frightened of Nosferatu while some men set sail and see a coffin with a bunch of rats inside. And the coffin, at one point, we see get a fly getting trapped in the Venus flytrap, and we learn about Nosferatu as a predator, while one of the characters says blood is life, as we get more exploration that didn't really satisfy me, as we get a great shot of spiders, and I'm waiting for this movie to get a little better than it is 45 minutes into it. And we get an outside sports scene that I've never seen, that I've only seen the English play in other movies. I forget the name of it off the top of my head. And we end up at the beach, and we get a letter to the wife as, why is this boring me? Maybe I'm just not into silent movies. That much but is clear. But there are some good movies in black and white I've enjoyed, like Psycho from 1960, for example. But this feels like a piece of homework that I can't seem to get done because it's kind of hard for me to sit through. And I look forward to what Robert Eggers brings to the reboot coming soon. We get a character running a horse as a ship is shown, and we get a couple of sailors knocking a woman out, but not by fist, by some kind of medicine. Well, we get some rats coming out of the coffin, and Count Orlok pops out of the coffin and walks around outside. And I don't think I get this damn character at all. And we end Act 3 as that was suspenseful. Like, how can he survive sunlight is my question. And the editing felt super weird. Like, it was chopping one place to the next, and it gave me a hard time following the movie, while it gave me a headache as the wife goes outside because Nosferatu is coming for her. And I was already ready to fall asleep because I'm just bored for some reason. But I did feel a little suspense during Count Orlok going outside the ship. And for a movie that's 100 years old, I'm not impressed. Count Orlok's assistant says the master is near, and he attacks the guard and goes free and comes out with the coffin while some rats come out of the ship, and the assistant of Count Orlok comes to the house while the character comes home to his wife, and the ship's crew were somehow killed when attacked by Nosferatu, and no one was left alone, not one soul. Alive, excuse me, not one soul. We move on to a stage where they try to awaken one crewmate, but they see danger is coming, and I didn't really care. We get a telegram saying there's a curfew at nighttime, and we end Act 4, and Act 5 begins with people writing crosses out their front doors, and I keep waiting to like this movie, like I tried so hard to be, but the fact this movie is so damn boring to the point it's insane, as the wife looks outside for Nosferatu, and the townspeople learn he's a vampire, and the assistant is on the roof and gets back on the ground as the townspeople look for the assistant and go after him, and Nosferatu is outside across from the wife as she sees him, and she goes to her husband and faints suddenly, and the husband runs outside, and the wife sees Nosferatu, and she lays back down in bed, and we get a haunting shot of Nosferatu drinking some of the wife's blood, looking like a vampire. And they get the assistant climbing up the window as the guards let him down, as the assistant says the master is dead. And I think the wife is dead, while little Nosferatu might have came in the doctor. And the climax gave the movie potential, but missed the opportunity at the end of the day, while I just was bored out of my freaking mind. And let's see how unimpressed I am with the rating. I'll give this movie a 4.7 out of 10. I didn't care for the characters, while I just wanted them to die by the end of the vampire 10 minutes into the movie, as I don't really know what the hell is going on throughout the movie, nor do I know any of the characters either, as I was giving it chances from start to finish. Don't get me wrong though, I did like the cinematography, as it looked good for back in the day, as this was 100 years ago. It looked like the movie was shot in 16mm camera, and I did appreciate how scary it could be for 100 years ago, maybe after Shadow the Vampire came out, but it doesn't work today. But the vampire creature did look frightening for children, but I'm afraid I didn't get scared by this movie at all. I did appreciate the movie for scaring some audience members, as I look forward to what Robert Eggers brings to the reboot. And it pains me to say this, and I know I'm going to get crap thrown at me, but unfortunately, I don't have a choice but to weekly not recommend this movie to myself, as this felt like homework, but I'm glad I saw both the black and white and the colored versions. But at the end of the day, it was just hard to follow, and it was just boring throughout, and I have to be brutally honest and say, I'm not impressed with the movie that came out 100 years ago, and that's really making me sad. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next time I will be back with Nosferatu the Vampire from 1979. And until then, I am Dracula.